Hey, this is Nathan Manning with Oswald Services in Bowling Green, Missouri. We do all types of custom fabrication and metal repairs on all types of materials. If you've got something bent, busted, broken, or otherwise just needs to be built heavier, bring it in. Let's see what we can do with it. The project you're about to see had quite a few problems with it, so we knew it was a good way to show some of the things that we can do to revive an old piece of equipment. Some of the tools that we used included the 350 amp MIG welder, 45 amp plasma cutter, 280 amp TIG welder, 85 amp plasma cutter, and of course the old faithful oxyacetylene torch. Not including all the angle grinders, PPE, and other tools, as well as the big bandsaw that's way back there in the corner. So sit back. This video's a bit long, but this was quite an involved project. A few weeks ago we added this on because the customer kept peeling that back, so we made it removable, and all it would do is snap those bolts. It has been off a few times since he's been using it, and he's been having fun breaking other stuff. If you notice, this tube is supposed to be straight. It is not. This piece and that piece should be parallel. It is not. This lid took a really big hit of something. And there is a piece that goes on right here. I think it's some kind of a fan to help blow the material towards the inside. Yeah, here it is. There's a tab missing here. There's one missing here. There's one that looked like it went to a meat grinder, and this one's barely hanging on. This is gonna be fun. Okay, we've gotten a little bit of the angle out. As you can see, it's not quite lined up, but we've released the chain. We had the chain hooked on here, ran under that piece, and hooked to the tongue. We were pulling that together, but just to make it a little bit easier, because we could only get about one chain link at a time, and barely that, we are going to cut the welds under here to release this tube so it can be twisted back apart. As you can see, we've still got about 4 degrees to go. After cutting these stitch welds under here, I just have them tacked a little bit to hold it. But we cut those stitch welds. We were able to use the chain binder and pull this end back in, and it wasn't really that hard after those welds were cut to twist that welded tube back into a straight position. We pulled it to where it was 1 degree positive of where it had started. It had been somewhere around 6 degrees negative. So we pulled it 1 degree positive. I tacked those welds, and then we released the tension on the chain. And as it stands, that right there is 2/10 of a degree. And it's now all we need to do here is figure out exactly how far in that needs to be pulled. So here's the rigging we did to pull that end around. Welded this pipe on, and we put some alignment tape measures clamped to the wheel hubs so that we were sure we were pulling them to parallel. They, in this, about 3.5 feet. They're both right at about 8 foot now. When it started, this one was about 8 foot, or 96.25 inches, and this one was 90, about 92 even. So that's how far out of alignment that piece had gotten. Had a toe out pretty bad, but it's pretty square now. A few spots where it buckled a little bit. Had to relieve the stress with some cuts with the plasma cutter, and loosened all the welds on the inside here, and a couple slices to relieve the stress in there, as well as back here. And about a 5 or 6 foot piece of tubing, the chain binder wrapped up to the other end, and 2 bites with the chain binder, and we were square. We're going to strengthen this end up, help keep it from twisting again, and to do that, we have cut a piece of 1/2 inch plate to fit on there. This other side was manufactured with a thicker plate along the front edge. So we're basically going to copy the design over here. Already have the piece cut out. And to make that bend, have my handheld weed burner under here, heating up that joint where it's going to bend. Looks like it's just about ready to start. Heating up the exact area we're going to bend here. So we are strengthening this back part of this frame up, so hopefully it won't twist or bend next time. Just maybe somewhere else, like the tongue might bend more, but hopefully we won't have to do this again. We put a 6-inch, 1/2 inch thick plate across here with gussets, a 4-inch, 1/4 inch wall square tube down the leg, and this is the forged piece to fit right in here, from here all the way up to about here somewhere, and it wraps around this bend. So that will be strengthened up just as good as the other side that already had a heavy plate on it. Hopefully he's got a heavy enough tractor to pull this. By the time we get done, it's going to be a few 100 pounds heavier. this piece here, because of the blades being loose, has a big notch out of it there. So we're removing that. Got to pull this off again to be able to get that off, but wanted to pull that off and run a few beads across that as well, as just kind of getting everything cleaned out back in there. And we're needing to repair the hole in the back side of the cutting bar, so that'll make that a little easier, having that other piece out of the way. We've got another one over here to repair as well. So here's the forged plate. Makes a few different bends to get to where it needed to go, but it fit pretty nice. Well, here it is, all welded up. She's solid all the way around except for the very bottom. Oh, we are repairing the gearbox units. This one was okay, but there was two of them that were cracked right through the bolt holds that holds the skid plate on. I've got them both over at the table right now. This one, we're in the process of grinding it out. And this one is the very end one that had a chunk out of it. So we figured it'd either crawl around on the ground or just pull them off and set them over here on the table where we could get up and work on them a little easier. I already brazed the crack in this one, filled that one all the way up. We're going to drill it back out and tap it. This one I think we'll be able to salvage the hole. Just got to grind that back down flat across there. And over here, we are replacing this chunk with this chunk. It just sets in there, and then we'll fill it up with some silicon bronze with the TIG, and that should hold up for him for a little while.
Get a shot of the skid plate.
Oh, yeah, and over here we added, at customer request, he said this end skid plate was digging into the dirt, so we put a 4-inch plate along the leading edge of it so that it shouldn't dig into the dirt anymore. Plus it strengthens it up so it's a little bit more rigid also. Well, we got it all painted up, and it don't look half bad. Looks like it ought to last a while. We polished this up with some emery cloth so the sections will slide back on there pretty good. Got the hole drilled This was the one that just had the crack through it. This one is here. Partially got it drilled, but that's the one that had a chunk out of it. Just built that up with some silicon bronze with the TIG. I like using silicon bronze on cast whenever I can because you don't have to put as much heat into it, less chance of cracking. But I did preheat the box in this area to about 400 to 500 degrees. The other end of it probably wasn't that much, but I didn't want to burn up the grease and oil that's in that end. But got that, and didn't seem to crack anywhere. Here's the support frame for the lid. What we are going to do, we cut off the sections of angle here that it was bent. Both of them weren't bent, but we decided we would just make it so that this angle is replaceable. Since there was already holes here, which there wasn't any holes in the cover for it, so I'm not sure why those holes were there. So what we're going to do is use those holes and be able to bolt a 3-inch angle in this place. This was only a 2 by 2 by 3/16 angle, and we're going to put a 3 by 3 by quarter angle in this spot, so that's going to be a little stronger. And if it does get bent, just a few bolts, cut a new piece, and bolt a new one in place. Oh, we've got one more gearbox to put onto the cutting bar here. The one right here we patched up. Ended up not having a tap good enough to go through the silicon bronze, so if you notice, right in there is the shape. Well, right in there is a nut. We blew it out with the plasma cutter and brazed a nut, a double nut, because one wasn't really thick enough to grab in enough compared to the thickness of where the nut went through on the other side. So we got that one done. That was the one that just had a crack out of it. It's all brazed around it, cut out the hole big enough to drop the nut this size down in there, and then brazed it in and let the silicon bronze soak down in around there. And you might even be able to see in here, yeah, there it is, sticking through on the inside. But silicon bronze takes a really hard tap to try to cut threads in it, and The ones I had just weren't cutting it. We went ahead and popped the caps off of all of these elements, is what they're called, and we found that all of them were about the same, real low on grease, and the grease that was in there was pretty burnt smelling. So we went ahead, the customer wanted us to go ahead and replace all the grease in all of them. The very first one over here we haven't checked yet. That one uses gear oil, but all the rest of these use grease. One we found, let's see if I can find it again. Yeah, this one is missing a tooth, so he's gonna have to get that replaced. Here is the tooth. Here's a close-up of these gears, and you can see right there is where it mates up to. Turn this. Had to order a new skid plate that goes under that blade, and there are skid rails that go under these plates. I am assuming that they hook into these notches and then bolt through the bolts in the back. Here is the 3-inch angle iron that we bolted onto the front edge. Well, it's out of the shop and ready to go. The last thing we did to it was added this little latch right here to hold the lid in place, so if anything else goes wrong, it'll hopefully keep the lid from falling down into the cutters, and it'll help keep it from rattling around as well. The gear in the cutter bar that was broken, we checked on that, and you have to buy them as a match set, and they are over $850 for the set. So figured, since it doesn't seem to be catching or anything and have to pull that cutter bar all apart, he's just gonna run it until it is totally wore out and replace the set at that time. But it's done, and like I said at the beginning, this was fun. You can see some of the things we're able to do here at Oswald Services. Like our Facebook page. We'll probably be posting some pictures of this project that we're getting started on now. It's a fuel tank off of a dump truck that a guy is wanting us to put some fittings in for using it as a hydraulic reservoir. So in the meantime, if you have anything that's bent, busted, broken, or you want it built heavier so it won't do any of those things, come in here and check us out here at Oswald Services.